The Asics Novablast 5 and the Asics Superblast 2, two shoes that don't compete with one another, instead they complement one another, and moving into 2025, that's even more the case. If this video feels a bit like deja vu, it's because I've actually made this video a few times now. Most recently back in July when the Superblast 2 launched, and I did the Superblast 2 versus the Novablast 4, which was the Novablast at the time. And the general premise of that video is that these two shoes don't compete with one another. They're very different types of shoes in very different categories. And I still hold true to that. Now, when I review a shoe, I'm looking at it through really two lenses. My own experience with the shoe, running in it, how I feel it runs, how I feel it works, and what I really want to get out of the shoe. But then I look at what is the design use case that the brand developed the shoe for. I want to understand what they intended that shoe to be used for. So when I'm reviewing a shoe, I'm trying to stay within the lanes of how the brand is looking at the shoe. Now, obviously, any runner can run in any shoe however they want, but the brand designs them for a very specific type of use case. And in the case of Asics with the Novablast and the Superblast, that use case has been a little bit blurry at times, but now moving into 2025, I think it's very crystal clear. And the best place to start comparing these two shoes is really to look at the specs. Now, looking at the specs, these shoes are very different, but surprisingly similar in other ways. These stack heights are obviously considerably different. There's much more foam in the Superblast 2, but that's by design. And the drop is both 8 mil in the shoes. However, I'm going to say the Novablast 5 now feels like a real 8 mil drop, and the Superblast 2 just feels flatter to me. It's like a 5 to 8 mil. It doesn't feel like an 8 mil drop. The weight now between these two shoes is very similar. It's 5 grams difference, which you're not really going to notice. However, in my pair of Superblasts, you can see that they're a little bit lighter than that, but so are my Novablasts. Again, you're not going to really feel the difference. Both these shoes feel incredibly light when you pick them up. The ride of these two shoes is really where they're going to be distinguished and very different. The Novablast 5, I'm going to consider very springy. The new FF Blast Max Foam is very resilient. You're getting a lot of rebound, but you're getting a lot of sink. It's a very, very nice training sensation. Whereas with the Superblast 2, since you're getting a huge chunk of FF Turbo Plus, Asics' premier super foam, you're getting a very energetic ride. Now, there's no plate in the Superblast 2. It's just foam. It's mostly FF Turbo Plus with a little bit of FF Blast Plus Eco underneath it to smooth it out. But you're getting a very energetic, very rolling feel in that shoe because of the stiffness of the foam, the support of the foam, and then the pronounced forefoot rocker, which the overall stiffness of the shoe really accentuates. The Superblast 2 really is meant to mimic a Metaspeed in the way it rolls off the toe, where the Novablast 5 is a much more flexible shoe. You're not getting that rockered experience. You're kind of flattening out no matter where you're landing in that shoe. And the ride between these two shoes, and therefore the use case of these two shoes, again, remains very different. The other key difference between these two shoes is seen here in the contact patch of the outsole. The Superblast 2 is a wide shoe. There's no way of saying that the Superblast 2 is not a giant shoe. There is a ton of foam in it. The stack height is massive and the width of it is massive. But again, Asics' engineers are trying to optimize the Superblast 2 to provide that forward roll off the forefoot rocker. But again, there's no carbon plate in that. So they have made a very, very wide shoe to maximize stability. Again, this is a very specific long-run marathon training shoe. So that's why it's designed the way it is. Now, it is a lot of foam, it is a lot of shoe, and a lot of people complain that it's just too much shoe, too much foam, but there's a reason why it's designed that way. The Novablast 5 has slimmed down a little bit from the Novablast 4. It's a little bit narrower, it's much more nimble, it's much more agile, and it is now a much better daily trainer. And as far as the rubber coverage of both these shoes, it's now very similar, though I think the Novablast 5 has a much better rubber outsole pattern. I think it's much simpler and I think it works much better. And as far as grip between these two shoes, I'm not really noticing any major difference anymore. Moving into the fit and therefore the upper of these two shoes, I've been saying that the Novablast 5 compared to the Novablast 4, I think is using the same last. I'm not 100% sure, but it feels very similar to me, to the point where the Novablast 5 fits almost identically to the Novablast 4s as far as the width of the shoe and the length of the shoe. However, between these two shoes, the Superblast 2 and the Novablast 5, I am nearly confident that these actually are the same last because they literally fit my foot the exact same way. Now, there are differences in how these shoes feel on foot, but it's not a fit thing, and that comes down to the actual upper materials. In the Novablast 5, we have a technical mesh material, which again, as I've described, is very plastically but very flexible, and it drapes over the foot very nicely. It's a very accommodating fit that actually moves around quite a bit when your foot's in here. And I think that's what's giving this shoe the added width in the forefoot, though I don't think there's actually any more. And overall, this upper material is quite nice, and it's quite loose and open and airy on the foot. In the Superblast 2, we have a woven upper, but unlike the upper that was on the Novablast 4, this is a much more open weave. It's still a little bit rougher, but again, it's very compliant and wraps around the foot quite well. It's breathable because it's more open than the upper material that's on the new Novablast 5, but as far as how this drapes around the foot and the width in the forefoot of the shoe, this upper material feels very much similar to me. Now, both these shoes are US men's size 9, which is true to size for me. That's the size I wear in basically every shoe. And as far as width and length, they fit identically to me. There's really no difference. The midfoot in both these shoes now uses the exact same tongue, which I think is an upgrade because the tongue in this shoe is very good. It's nice to see it over here. They have the same laces, the eyelet chain. It's different, but it locks down in the same way. The only real difference between these two shoes is in the ankle collar. There's more padding over here in the Novablast 5, which makes sense because this is a daily trainer, so they're going to maximize padding. And the Achilles flare in this shoe is also more padded, creating a deeper pocket back here for the heel, where there's still padding in this shoe, there's just less of it. And that makes sense because this is a training tool for a marathon build, not a daily trainer. As I've already said, the ride between these two shoes is also very different. This is relying on the FF Blast Max foam to be bouncy and springy and resilient, which it is. So you're getting a lot of pop off the toe because of the foam and the trampoline effect in the forefoot of the shoe. That's what this is. Whereas with the Superblast 2, you're going to get a much more rolling feel because this shoe is now maximizing the rocker in the forefoot because FF Turbo Plus is stiffer, even though it is smoothed out by a small layer of FF Blast Plus Eco Foam under this. But still, this shoe is making you roll forward. There's no pop off the toe of this shoe. It's a roll off the toe, which again is designed to mimic the Metaspeeds. And this does that very well. And as I said, the outsole of the Novablast 5 I think is actually quite good. This is Asics' AHAR low rubber. I'm finding it very durable, very grippy, and I actually really like this pattern. I like the emphasis of all of this rubber in the forefoot, especially in the trampoline effect, which gives you the feel that you're landing and using more rubber on the forefoot of the shoe. So as a forefoot striker, I'm landing now on a lot of rubber. As a heel striker or midfoot striker, you're going to be rolling off on a lot of rubber. So this is that classic Novablast feel of a compliant feel to the ground because there's a lot of exposed foam, but you're getting the excellent rubber coverage and you're getting really the best of both worlds. It still feels like a Novablast, but it now has the durability and the versatility of a true daily trainer because of this rubber coverage. Whereas the outsole of the Superblast 2 is Asics' Asic Grip rubber, which is supposedly a better material or more grippy material than the AHAR low material that's on the Novablast 5, but I actually don't feel any difference. In fact, I think I like the AHAR low rubber better on the Novablast 5 than this. The outsole pattern on this, or the rubber placement on this, I think there's so many pieces of it because they're, again, trying to reduce weight. Rubber is typically the heaviest piece or the heaviest material on the shoe. So they're trying to get this shoe down to the weight that it really needs to be a training tool for the marathon with as minimal rubber as they can possibly get away from. Again, as a training tool meant for long runs for a marathon build, I think this is fine rubber coverage. I think it has good grip. As a daily trainer, I don't think there's enough here. But again, the Superblast 2 is not a daily trainer. This is a marathon training tool. This is a shoe intended for long runs. And I'm saying long runs being 25 to 30K, where a big chunk of that is going to be your marathon pace or faster than marathon pace. That's what this shoe is designed for, not just everyday daily running. Another way to look at this is with my performance matrix. So if we put these shoes together on this, and again, this is an and, this isn't against each other. These two shoes are meant to work together. And we put the Novablast 5 on here. You can see the Novablast 5 has a ton of range. It truly is a versatile daily trainer that can do any of this really, really well. Though its sweet spot is in that easy to steady, just into threshold. That's where I think the Novablast 5 really likes to be. However, you can do your easy sort of recovery jogs in it, and you can go up and do speed work in it. I've done a lot of track workouts now in the Novablast 5, and it works great. It also works great for 1K repeats on the road, 1 mile repeats, even 400s or 800s on the road. It does extremely well, and it's very, very versatile. And that's not something I could have always said about the Novablast, but with the Novablast 5, it truly has the versatility. So now if we add in the Superblast, you can see the Superblast range is much more narrow. The Superblast is designed to be a shoe that sits really in that threshold area where you're running mostly race pace or marathon pace in this shoe. And therefore, it's going to do steady running just fine as you get up to speed. And it will do easy running as well because, you know, a long run of 25, 30K with marathon pace reps in there, you're going to be doing some easy recovery in there too. So it does that well, but it's not a shoe I would ever pick just to go out and do an easy run in. It's not what it wants to do. It's not its best use case. And on the max effort side for the Superblast 2, again, it's just not really geared towards doing stuff like speed work and really fast running. Again, I know people do it in that, but I personally can't imagine ever bringing a Superblast 2 to the track. I just can't imagine it. And I've tried to do 400s and 800s in the Superblast 2, and it does okay, but I just feel like I'm tripping over the shoe, both the rocker and just the amount of shoe that's on my foot. It's just not geared to that. But the Novablast 5 really is. So that's really kind of where I think these two shoes really work together, is that the Novablast 5 now really is that competent all-around daily trainer. This is your one shoe to do everything in. You can literally train and do everything you want in the shoe, and if you're just sort of a casual racer who jumps into the occasional park run or 5K, this is going to be a great option for you. You really don't need anything else. But if you're a more serious runner and you want to prepare for a marathon build, that's where you want to start to look at this shoe. That's what this shoe is. Now, as I said in the upfront, people use these shoes however they want to use these shoes. I mean, there's no one telling you or forcing you to use them a certain way. I'm merely trying to talk through my experience with these two shoes via the lens of how Asics has really designed these two shoes to work together. Another way to look at this is through rotations. How would you build a rotation using these shoes? Well, now in Asics' 2025 lineup, the Novablast really is the true daily trainer. This is the shoe that will do anything, go anywhere, and really do anything on this page. Race, fast trainer, cushion trainer, everything in between. If you just want one shoe to be able to kind of do everything and you're just kind of a casual runner, you're totally good with one pair of Novablast 5s and you're good to go. It also seems like it's going to be a very durable shoe, so it's going to last quite some time and it'll work very well for you for a long time. But if you're doing the occasional race, or you're a racer who's doing more than the occasional race, but you don't want to go full super shoe or full carbon plated super shoe, this is where the Superblast 2 really complements the Novablast. You can do all of your training and a lot of your fast, shorter workouts in the Novablast, and you can do your faster long runs and race in the Superblast 2. In fact, if you're a 4 to 6 hour marathoner, this may be your best option for a rotation. The Novablast is going to protect your legs. It's going to do really well for training. The Superblast 2 is going to be your most comfortable and probably best option for that marathon time. As much as everyone loves the Superblast 2, the one thing you can't escape is everyone always talking about the price, that it's too expensive. Well, I don't think it is. If you look at the Superblast 2 as a super shoe, which is really what it is, at $200 USD, it's actually the cheapest super shoe. You're getting a huge block of FF Turbo Plus, which is Asics' premier race foam, in a shoe that is really a super shoe for really any type of runner. It's going to work amazingly well. You're getting a lot of value between these two shoes. In last year's version of this video, I showed this as sort of your 2024 optimized training and racing rotation with the Novablast 4 as your trainer, cushion trainer, the Metaspeed Paris, whichever one you want, the Sky or the Edge, as your race shoe, and then you're using a Hyperspeed 4 for your faster intervals and speed work, and then the Superblast 2 for your long runs. This last year was probably your best, most complete optimized training and racing rotation from Asics. However, looking into 2025, things have changed a little bit. Next year in 2025, this rotation is going to be really hard to beat. The new Novablast 5 with the new Metaspeed 4, or whatever the final name is for the new Metaspeeds we'll see next year, this two-shoe rotation is going to be very, very difficult to beat because everything is really covered in this rotation. In fact, I think the Novablast 5 is probably going to compare with the Metaspeed 4 Sky really, really nicely. There's been some tweaks, it seems, in the Metaspeeds for next year that are going to just make those much more rounded out shoes that are going to work for all that fast training, your long runs, and race. We already know that they're very durable. So this combination is going to be really, really difficult to beat. But the Superblast still could fit in here. These three shoes are going to cover all of your needs. You're going to have your daily trainer, the optimized long run trainer that's not plated, and then a Metaspeed as your race shoe. This is going to work really well. But next year, there's going to be another option. There's going to be this option. So we've seen this new shoe from Asics, which is known right now as the Meta Light, though the name could change, but that's the one I've seen most recently. And this is supposedly Asics' answer to the EVO 1. This is supposed to be that true top-tier hyper shoe. It is FF Turbo plus a new foam, which I think is probably going to be FF Turbo Max or something like that. I think it's still within that realm, but it's a new foam. And this is going to make that the Metaspeed 4, the new Metaspeeds, will now be that sort of optimized fast workout long run shoe, and the Novablast 5 will be your kind of all-around daily trainer. This is going to be a really interesting rotation. It's really interesting to see where Asics takes all this stuff next year, because it seems like they're really bringing the foam story into 2025, and this could be a very exciting rotation. But of course, you can still do this, and I think this will still be very valid, where Novablast is your daily trainer, the Meta Light could be your racer or your hyper shoe, and then you're going to be combining a Metaspeed 4 and a Superblast 2 for your plated faster stuff and your non-plated longer faster stuff. So this is still going to be a valid option next year as well. I just think you're only going to really need probably 3 of these shoes, and which 3 is going to be really up to you based on how aggressive you are with your marathon racing. There is no verdict here because, again, these two shoes don't compete with one another. Daily trainer, training tool, specifically a super shoe. They're not the same shoe. So I think both these shoes have their spot. I think they're both amazing shoes. But if you're worried about the cost of this shoe, in this shoe, the Novablast 5, you're getting a lot of the performance, you're getting a lot of the fun, a lot of the dynamic ride that you needed this shoe for previously with the Novablast 4, but you now get it in here. Plus, it's more bouncy, it's more fun, and I think more people are going to do better with this shoe in 2025 than even bothering buying this shoe. So if you can't find a Superblast 2 right now, don't worry. If you can find a Novablast 5, you're going to get everything you need in this shoe, and it's going to be really, really a great experience. Thank you for making it to the end of the video. If you find this content useful, consider subscribing. You'll see more content from me pop up in your feed. If not, drop a like on this video because it helps this channel continue to grow, which I always appreciate. And with that, I'll catch you in the next one.